What's up, Team Tackle? This is Coach Matt. I got two amazing coaches with me here today, and Coach Frank and Coach Bobby D, to break down our midweek scanning and opportunities. And obviously, traders are always looking for those fresh picks, good technical setups, and that's what we bring in, Trade Masters. So if you love Trade Masters, you love tackle trading, you love great content, hit that like and share. Tell somebody about it. Leave a comment. Give us your take if you're watching tonight or tomorrow off the live recording here, and tell us which picks you like and all that jazz. Love Team Tackle, so let's have a good show here today. Coach Frank, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing good, my man. Excited to be here. Excited to look at a few charts. However, before we do that, I mean, we gotta hit Google, bro. Google earnings can't happen. We can't give it a little bit of a primer for tomorrow's lounge, right?
I'm definitely going to be talking about Google in the lounge tomorrow, and that's something that if you're looking for a great community to have awesome conversations every single day, from intraday day trading to cash flow covered calls to swing trading opportunities, we break it all down every single day, from the news to tradable opportunities to answering all of our community's questions every single day in the lounge, and obviously. Very similar, like we break down every earnings report, at least the major ones, every day in the lounge. We'll definitely be talking about Google tomorrow, and this was probably the most important report this week, and we're just not seeing a tremendous amount of price movement so far. And I don't think that's a negative thing, given the fact that we have been seeing outlandish price movements recently in earnings. And specifically, even though we're not seeing a lot of price movement, it kind of stands out to me a little bit, given the fact that a lot of the top of the market has been selling even on beats on earnings. You saw it with AMD just today, a good 16% beat on AMD. They raised guidance by 7%, good revenue handle, and what was the path of least resistance on AMD down to 200. Keep an eye on that 180 handle for any support build. Love that 180 handle actually. And so Google, even though we're not seeing any sizable impact as of right now, I see that as a positive, given the fact of what we were dealing with the market open this morning on AMD and whatnot. On the numbers side of the equation, Google came in with a 7% beat, right at the market average. Revenue was beat the expectation by 2%. You beat by 7% and revenue's up beat by 2%. You should see a doji, quite frankly. That is a doji type earnings report. A lot of what these companies do is based on CapEx spend and what they say on the guidance side of the equation. I haven't got into the guidance side on Google, but man, they doubled CapEx spend from 25. Google is not messing around, not in any capacity. Google is here to win the race, and that's what their CapEx spend. They went up to 175 to 185 billion on CapEx spend, all on data center and the infrastructure build out to support their AI initiatives. And they're one of the major players there. And so obviously going to be a really important conversation tomorrow, and to see how the market really kind of impacts it. On the overnight session so far, we're just not seeing a tremendous amount of price movement, but it's still early in that conversation as well. So very interesting report coming out of Google. The majors so far, Palantir gapped up, sold down after their earnings report. AMD got smoked. Google's dojing so far. And you got Amazon here tomorrow night. So some major earnings, no doubt about that. And if you want to catch some of those awesome earnings, again, or what does earnings do for us, Frankie? They set up potential trades,
Yeah,
is
exactly.
what they do.
Yep.
And there's a lot of companies we're talking about on secondary technical patterns here. So let's see what we can get on Google as well. But with that said, let's get right into Trade Masters. Bobby D, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm happy to be back. Last week I was absent and I thank you for filling in for me. But I just
I
want to
did my
say,
best.
I just want to say, being out when, being on vacation, it's hard to come back. But when you have a trading newsletter and a podcast to watch, instead of it would probably I'd probably still be getting caught up, if it wasn't for those two. So, having those, two report, the trade, the newsletter and the podcast, it caught me right back up to what I missed, news wise, and haven't missed a beat. So I
Love it.
want to thank you for that.
Honestly, that's why we do the trade. That's why we do both of those, is to make
Yeah.
sure that our entire community is up to speed on the conversations that are important to the marketplace. So appreciate that, and obviously we love that tackle newsletter. There's no doubt about that. Let's get into round one here, team. Coach Frank, Coach Bobby. Frankie, you're the veteran here. You're the seniority, and the only reason I say that is because that beard is seniority based.
It's getting large.
Who's going first here, brother?
Listen, we'll let Bobby go first since he missed last week. We'll let him go first here this afternoon. What you
All
got,
righty.
Bobby? What you got
Yeah. So
for
my
us?
first pick, I'm going to go with Wheaton Precious Metals, WPM.
Cheater.
And
My
before we
only
look at
question,
this,
Bobby, is have you seen enough after that recent volatility to get excited? And I think you bringing
I
it in round one kind of answers that question.
absolutely. I mean, as you can see here, I mean, this chart has been rampant, from majority, of last year into this year. And, I've always was waiting for a pullback. I knew it would pull back, and, we got that pullback now. And so, when you get a setup like this, you just got to pounce on it when you get it. But before I was highlighting this. I kind of wanted to pull up the materials sector. I mean,
Yeah.
because if you just look at the materials sector in general, I mean, it's just going haywire right now. And, there's a lot of good setups in that sector, and there's a lot of good, mining and silver setups within materials as well. But, just be cognitive that there is earnings coming up on a lot of these. But for wheat and precious metal right now, you do got some time before earnings. Earnings is in March. But like you said, this, recent volatility and this pullback, just sets it up for nice. Today, I had this on my radar yesterday, when me and Frank were going through the coaches show, and one of the things I had written down in my notes was inside candle, and we got that today.
Yeah.
It's probably not the best inside candle, but it's an inside candle, so I can't beat that. But
That's high
you know,
inside too.
yeah, absolutely. And so, but long-term charts, I really like the weekly when you pull up the weekly here. Nice pullback. You did get your confirmation through this week. A nice green candle. Um, Same with the monthly. Monthly looks nice, but that weekly is really kind of what anchored me into really liking this chart. I mean, the daily did as well, but the weekly, I always like to peek at the weekly just to see what's cooking there. But coming back to the daily, one thing about Wheaton, and I noticed them, because they've been on the traders report, a couple weeks. I mean, maybe about a month ago or so. I know they've been on a few times. The options are just, a little bit, weird on them. It is a volatile stock, so it moves. You do have a 7 ATR on a $140 stock, but other than that, I mean, it's just trying to, the options are very weird. So, I don't I don't blame anyone who wants to look at this and just play straight shares on this one. I know it's expensive, but with the options as it is, in the setup as this is, for me, I was looking at more of a credit play.
Mhm.
Um, I was looking trying to anchor around the 120-ish zone. And the reason I was looking at the anchor because you do get some moving averages, anchoring that 120. You do get I think you get the 50 moving average on the daily. You pull over to, the weekly, you are above the 20, but over time the 20 will eventually move up. But um, on this one, with how wide the bid-ask spread is, for me, I would probably wait to enter this trade tomorrow, just because I know, things will probably tighten up when the market opens. Strike price wise on expiration, I was
What
anchoring.
what expiration date you looking?
I was actually looking at the March 6th. I like when I do my credits, I like to stay within the 30-day window here. And so like, you could the 120 and the 115, not a bad strike price, but it's like I said, if you look at the bid ask, it's just so wide. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, for me on the credit side, I would anchor more towards waiting till the market opens. But if I was to play this directionally, buy shares, if I'm not a fan of the options, I would play over today's candle. That would be my entry. What's nice about this and what's nice about getting an inside, bar candle is you have options with the stop loss. You can either play under today's candle, you can either go over under yesterday's candle, or you can go under the pivot if you want to, treat it as more of a position trade. So, for me, I was anchoring more towards playing this as yesterday's candle because,
Mhm.
you definitely got a nice risk reward, over today's candle, under yesterday's candle. Target wise. I would look to, target into the pivot, which would be the 160. That would be my T1. And then I would probably go into the 170, 180-ish. So play it up to there since this is a mover. So, movers, I tend to be on my T2. I tend to be loose with my targets just because, especially when you have a mover like this, you play into the 170, but you are anchoring that 180. So, 170 by 180 would be my T2. So yeah, just you could either play stock on this, or for me it would be either credit as well. So
Yeah, so are you looking at Audie had a question which strike and I just answered that in chat, but the 120 by 115 credit spread is kind of what you're looking at there. Would you say you're looking at that credit spread plus a slight stock kicker on the directional side? Is that kind of what you're looking at here?
Oh, I always, that's one of my biggest things as of recently is I always, if I'm unsure about a stock, I mean, this one has a nice setup and that,
Mhm.
credit is credit for me just because how juiced, the IV is.
Yeah,
But something that I'm either front running or something I'm unsure of, it gives you an indecision candle. I do like to play the credit, then, eventually take that money and just go out and, maybe play the directional if I do get that confirmation. So,
yeah,
like a setup like this, you don't want to miss it. So for me, I always want to be involved some way, whether that's credit or directional. But if I'm scaling in, I do like to, scale on the credit side and then eventually use that credit to pay for the debit.
gotcha, gotcha. Love the setup here, Frankie.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of gold, silver, GDX type components here that look fairly similar. I would say Wheaton, as of right now, is probably has a little bit of a better development than some of those other ones right now. What's your thoughts here on the
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think
Wheaton
that's a
trade?
great point. I think if I'm looking the credit route, I probably would just go GDX. Same philosophy, right?
Mhm.
I think the breakdown is spot on. I would just probably go to GDX into the basket, easier liquidity, cheaper
And then do a
stock.
kicker over here on
And but if
Wheaton.
I'm going directional, and you know me, I
You're thinking
really
directional.
I
Yeah.
like this one directionally speaking. I don't think this wasn't the best inside candle, right? I think it was a great one, right?
I think
You
it was a
got
good
pushed
one
down,
too.
you rally back up towards the top end of it. So I actually really like the price action here today. I
Well,
like
and
the build.
can I add one thing on the technical side here very quickly to support the
Ooh, look,
directional side of the equation? The intraday levels are very clean here.
that is super clean. Goodness
Very
Very
gracious.
clean.
clean intraday levels, which you can, trigger above. And I think you could easily put a stop loss under either on the
Either or,
directional side, either
either
today's
or. Yeah.
low or even on
Yeah.
yesterday's low. And so I agree. I'd like them both. I think for me, I'd like the GDX route. It's a little bit more liquid, tighter bid-ask spreads on the credit side, but Wheaton plays here too. Those will tighten up during the session.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And those weekly options also haven't been introduced long. They're going to get a little bit more liquidity here, specifically as the volatility kind of wanes down a little bit here on, after last Friday's bloodbath in the commodity space. So I do think this is one of the better setups. And, going into tonight, this is a conversation we have every single day in the Traders Lounge. But going into tonight, you got a situation on gold that looks pretty healthy as well. I talked, in the lounge earlier today about this trade coming into tonight, going into the Asian session, getting back up above 5K, and now you're seeing a little bit of a pump. And I thought, silly of me to think we would have to wait till the Asian Open to get that pump above 5K, like it happened right on the reestablishment of the futures market. But GC looks like it's going to participate a little bit here tonight to help those gold stocks tomorrow. But again, this is early in the candle. And you can always tell that by coming in and saying, oh, yeah, this is tomorrow's candle. You see that? That's on 2-5. This is tomorrow's candle. It just opened up a few minutes ago. So got a little bit of some positive love coming into the gold into gold here. And as you can see on gold, very similar setup. And now you're starting to get above that 90 MA there. Love the analysis there. Thank you so much, Bobby, for the pick on WPM and the breakdown as well. Frankie, tough to beat a good old fashioned bullish
Yes,
retracement in wheat and precious metals.
it is.
What's your thoughts in round
It
one?
is. Well, listen, I do really like wheat and precious metals, but I got a new chair, Maddie, and it just feels a little weird right now. So I'm going to offset the newness with the oldness, and I'm going back to last week's talk on GM. I think this is actually even better today than it was when we talked about it last week, because we were barely
Yep, I
into
agree.
that earnings candle. We had that big breakout on earnings, barely into it. What we really wanted was to consolidate and stay within the price range of that earnings candle. It did that all week long, right? All the while, the nine's been pushing up and now starting to apply some pressure to us, stuck our nose just a hair above that earnings candle here today. So it becomes a really easy build, at least from an entry perspective, in my opinion. All we need to do is get follow through off of today's candle. I don't have nothing I've seen this week makes me think any less that it's less likely to go to ultimately 100,
Yeah.
which was kind of where my head was last week. I think it did us a huge solid. And sometimes, as I often say, they break on their time, not mine, right? And it could be really easy to have a breakout candidate you really like, and then it doesn't break out, so you get bored of it and move on to the next new shiny thing. Well, we can move to next new shiny things, but let's not forget about the old things if they're holding their pattern and their structure. You also got an extra stop location, in my opinion, this week because of that low that we put in on Monday, where we saw the upward movement in price. It's actually a little bit higher than the earnings candle low, but it also gets us the 9 EMA. So that may or may not be what you wanted to choose. Maybe you're playing the earnings candle, maybe you're just playing, the bar, right? But it does give you an extra data point, and that one does stand out to me. I call it the low that led to the breakout, right? And so I put a little extra value on that type of price action personally. That's the one that I like. I still like this ultimately, purely directionally. I like it as a spread play, but you can certainly just pop some calls or play the shares. Like we kind of discussed last week, I do like the kicker of the March 95 100. It's a little more expensive today than it was when we talked last week, but it gives you it takes a little bit more risk right now in the mid 60s, probably. Last week it was, in the mid 50s, but gives you a little more risk on the trade, right? You have to respect that, but it also gives you a tremendous amount more upside if we do make it to that 100 level or relatively close to it in this time frame between now and that March expiration period. So I don't think that's the primary trade in my head, although I could see someone making that case for it too.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great kicker situation personally, where my real trade is whatever. I'm buying shares. I'm popped a call. I've got, a March, 87.50, 95 traditional debit spread, right, with a 50 net delta. I'm just throwing that little kicker out there because I wouldn't be surprised if this pattern, if we do get that resolution, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a relatively fast trip to 100. I mean, hope it is, right? But wouldn't be shocking with the pent up price action after this earnings on this all-time high break on a stock that's been killing it anyway before all of this. So just got to get above today's high, in my opinion, and then it's all bets, all systems go to me.
Yeah, I really like this one, Frankie. It did everything we asked it to be perfectly blunt. We wanted consolidation after a breakout, following the earnings gap. We got it. It hasn't done anything wrong in that. It hasn't breached the 9 EMA. It hasn't got underneath the breakout channel. It looks pretty good in development. And I think you can easily go above the high, and I think you can structure the trade in a variety of different ways. Whereas you have your way. I think you can go simple shares here. I think you can go simple call options here on the breakout. And so there's a lot of different ways to tactically play it. But from the technical side, entry above the high, stop underneath either. If you're going to play a base, the traditional way is to get the stop loss underneath the base.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say to that is that does change for me a little bit when you get a very clean intraday level of support. And you do have a very clean intraday level of support. So you could actually tighten this up even more to have a very cheap risk type opportunity. Now, anytime you tighten up that stop loss, you're going to give up a little bit of your probability there as well.
Yeah.
But I think there's a variety of ways to play that. I like them both. If I had to say which one I like the most here, I like them both quite a bit, but I'll have to take GM. And the only reason is has had very good pattern development. We're still in the early stages of the development in gold in general. Wheaton is just a little bit better than some of the other gold stocks. So I'd take GM, but it's by a hair. What's your thoughts? You two, you still kind of favor your own?
Yeah.
I do, Bobby. I sold myself, and real quickly, there's a lot of ways you can go. I think the traditional would be the 8750 by 95 for
Mhm.
March. I like that one. I also like I said, I like the kicker. It's a little more aggressive, like the 95 100. But there's multiple ways you could make it wider. You can buy more time, right? So it works either way there. But I'm just on Team GM, right? I really liked it last week,
Yeah.
and I really like it this week. It's not that I don't like Wheaton, but I got to pick. I'm going to stick with my dog GM.
Yeah, I think if you're going bull call spread, I agree with Frankie. Traditional 87.5 in a 95 on the strikes sold. You're offsetting about 33% of the cost, and you're going to have a net delta right around the 20, right around what would that be, 27?
Yeah, so right,
And so
yeah,
that's how I would structure it. There is
yeah.
on
They
that
don't,
one, buddy.
yeah, they don't have Aprils yet, or I'd price them out,
Mhm.
right? There'd be nothing wrong with
I think
buying
you're
more
fine
time.
on 44 on GM. You're tracking the high base, and you're hoping for a little bit of Momo there.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right, let's move on to round two here. Good analysis in round one on GM versus Wheaton Precious Metals. Two areas of the market we rather enjoy with General Motors on the Tackle 25. And let's face it, everybody at Tackle Trading loves a little bit of a gold stock. There's no doubt
it is
about that.
true. It is
Let's
true.
do the wrapping round style here, Frankie. You went first,
All
and I
right.
mean, you went second in round one. Let's go ahead and go
I'll,
with you first in round
I'll do
two.
it this way. I'm going to do a name that we used to talk a lot about, and then they change their symbol, and then they change it back, and that's the gap. Now it's once again it's GAP. For a while it was GPS, right? But we are back to GAP, and this is a multiple time frame breakout, and it's even more pronounced if you look at it from a longer term perspective.
Mhm.
They are fighting through a hefty chunk of resistance right now, right after a long consolidation range. I'm a sucker for multiple time frame breakout. I personally, you know that, Maddie. I think everybody knows that. And again, I think there's a little debate, but I think we've got it. I think we've got it, and all we really need to do is see it take out today's high. Personally,
Mhm.
it's done enough to convince me that it has broken out. There's a tremendous amount of room for it to run. I think you're probably just realistically looking like the next real resistance closer to $40, which earnings are about a month away. That's not a realistic target. I mean, it's a hopeful target. I'd love to see it get there, but that's not probably particularly realistic
If you had 3 months
either.
on it, I'd say maybe
Yes, if earnings were like if earnings were last week, I'd be let's just position
Gap's
trade it.
not that stock that's going to rock 25% in the short term.
It's generally
Usually,
it's not, but I
usually.
would be happy if wanted to prove us wrong there.
Oh, if you want,
Gap,
if you want to get up and run, that's fine. We ain't going to
yeah,
say no.
let's rock and roll on this thing. I don't really think you need much here. I think it's,
No.
you just need to take out today's high. I think you could say that it closed above resistance. If somebody said, no, I need a little bit more, I wouldn't, fight them or anything like that. But I'm just above today's high, which is what, 29 and a quarter, 29.24. Grab the 9 EMA for your stop loss. You could probably fairly confidently just say under today's low, that nine's going to catch up pretty quickly. I
Yeah.
think 32 is a pretty reasonable conservative target on these guys. And that build gives us kind of that right at that 2-to-1 risk to reward ratio. But Momo's a heck of a thing, right? And maybe this guy picks it up, maybe he doesn't. But I think you kind of have kind of the 32 as T1, or, your action point, scale in, scale out, that type of stuff. But then you just kind of open up. I think probably 34. I'm going to officially call it 34 for T2, but it is one
Mhm.
of those scenarios where you're in this big window. I feel like 32 is very reasonable.
I
Anything
think
beyond
32
there,
is the real target here.
I think it's the the the,
If
the
Momo
main
takes
target.
over, I love what
Eh,
you said.
yeah,
Let it run, but I think
exactly.
32 is the real target
So I
here.
think, I think the trade is
Size of the base
32, and
into
yeah,
the space, like that's Wyckoff stuff, and at
yep,
32 makes a
exactly.
lot of sense.
Exactly. But I want to keep a little open because, there's nothing at 32, right?
Yeah.
From a
No,
resistance
we're trying to
perspective. So,
project based on where things
yeah, but
happen.
if you pick 33 or 35 or 34, I mean,
If you said
however
35,
educated it
I'd
might
say you're a
be,
little outlandish there, but
I would say those are the words of a coward. But I do like the 32 as kind of being the trade structured around it. That's our 2-to-1 trade, checks all the boxes. Let's see what happens beyond that. we will have the ticking clock with earnings, but we've got plenty of time. We got a month-ish or so for that. So sign me up for a breakout on Gap. It's relatively inexpensive stock, so you can easily play shares. You can pop some calls. It's not really the price range that I'm going to be super keen on in doing a bull call spread, although I'm always open-minded to pricing it out. If it's cheap enough, I'll always change my mind in that regard.
Very good price
But
for covered calls.
yeah, good price for covered calls too.
Very good price for
Absolutely.
covered calls.
Absolutely. And you could do this one of these situations where you
Pretty
play the
decent
break.
volatility for covered calls. You
Yeah.
do have some liquidity issues on the weekly.
Not
You
super,
saw
super
it,
tight. You probably have to
but
go into the monthlies.
the
Yeah. They're
monthlies
not
have
bad. Yeah.
plenty of liquidity there.
Yeah. So it could be
So
one of those where you do a covered call with a little kicker, maybe you do 105 shares, sell
if
your
you,
call at 30.
yeah, if you go shares, you can go directional on the shares, write a covered call when it gets to 32.
I love that philosophy. Yeah. If you are doing shares and you're working the 100 block, I love it at
I want to
32
do boomerang
like that.
Audi on not
On a
in front of
breakout,
earnings. Like,
breakout front of earnings. No, I
yeah,
would not either.
I'd
But I
take the
wouldn't want to
directional
buy it if
side.
it pulls back because I don't have the time. I wouldn't
Yeah, I
be
wouldn't
willing just
fight
to do it.
anybody who said I'm going to do a naked put. You got a month before earnings, you can do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I
But
wouldn't fight them,
yeah,
but because of the breakout and where it is, I want a little bit more. And since I
yeah, it
don't have
feels like
time,
one of those situations where Mark does a naked put, me and Frank go directional, and Mark complains.
I could see why you'd say that.
Yeah.
I could see why you would say that. So give me the gap. And I'm glad their symbol is back to the gap, by the way. GPS didn't make sense. I still want to call it GPS though, because I got into the habit there.
Yeah.
Uh,
When you said Gap, I immediately went to GB.
I
I've been
know
trading Gap
it's
recently, so it's just like, oh, we got a new symbol. Okay, let's rock. It's fun. Let's have some fun.
yeah.
I like the multiple time frame breakout here. I think it's a high quality breakout. You're not extended going into the breakout. You got an edge on direction here, and I think you take the edge. And I think you go aggressive on entry here, Frankie, above the high. But I'll never, ever, ever question somebody who says I want to see that ultimate confirmation.
Absolutely
I
not.
just
Yeah.
think you could argue you've already seen it.
Yeah, I feel
Um,
you have.
and,
But
and
yeah,
but I want to fault anyone because there are some bodies right where that line is.
sure.
And it's not you got a wick that even goes higher than that, but yeah, I wouldn't blame it, but I do like the above the high of today. Like the pick here, Bobby. What are you gonna do to offset the gap multiple time frame breakout front run into earnings? What's your thoughts here, brother?
Yeah, I have to redeem myself from losing last round to Frank on GM. So I'm going to go with a reversal on KBM, Kimberly Clark.
It's hard to beat multiple time frame breakouts for me there, Bobby. Let's see what you can do.
So, this one here, it's definitely has been interesting. I mean, if you go to the weekly chart, just if you just take a look, I mean, it's been getting beat up for most of, for majority of 2020, 2025. Coming into 2026, it looks like it kind of wants to redeem itself here, but it did peek its head over this nine moving average here on the weekly. And when you go back over to the daily, you did get some momentum today, which gets you that 50 moving average as well. So it looks like, KBM wants to maybe revive itself, for the past year or so. So, with them being, I always thought they were, I remember when they, actually, I don't remember, but I thought the stock was a lot cheaper than, $103. But, being what its price tag is, it actually, kind of going into the options chain, the options aren't too bad. I mean, you could do credits
Oh,
on them,
Kimberly is very liquid. Like,
yeah, you could do credits on them if someone's wants to do credit or a credit
doesn't
trade, but
Yeah,
for
the only thing I'd say on credits on Kimberly, I know this company fairly well. It doesn't have the volatility necessary for
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, for definitely, leaning more towards, a directional play on Kimberly's from the option side. I would, not to jump straight to the options, but for me, I was looking at the 105 by, 110. You could get that for about 90 cents, five wide. Get you your delta, get you a 20, I think a 22 delta there, which is just shy of your normal 25 delta. It's cheap, against the five wide spread, pretty much you're 2 to 1, way over 2 to 1 when you're looking at more of a risk reward. But for this one, definitely, when you go back to the, long-term time frames, anchoring, for me, I think you could just anchor the 20 weekly above, that you're gonna have to fight. that would definitely be, my first target. And then when you go out to the monthly, you do have some, overhead when it comes to the 200 moving average. That would be my other target. So I think for Kimberly, what's intriguing is you do have clear targets here. On your rebound yet, when you do have a reversal, you do have a lot to climb through, as you can see when you're looking through, on a long-term time frame. You got a lot of moving averages to fight through, but this nice little pocket here, break out, over today's high, which would be the 104 into the 108. I think that's a nice little pocket into that moving average. And then, you break that, you got another decent pocket into the, 113-ish time frame. So, for me on this one, ideally, I would like an inside candle. You can always ask, give me an inside candle tomorrow. But the momentum that you got today, I think you could play over today's candle for sure, especially if you're going to go the options route, because you do get that momentum volatility, or the volume here was pretty nice RSI wise. You're still in the 50s. So those secondary metrics that you look at do favor more of the bullish here. So for me, like I said, it would be, just over the 105 by 110 for 90 cents would be the play, the option play that I would, pick.
Hmm. The very interested in reversals recently, especially over the last week. In earnings, we've been seeing stocks coming from the low, like Kimberly-Clark, start to catch bits pretty aggressively, honestly. You saw it today out of CDW, right? Had a very similar report in terms of totality of numbers, not the breadth and the big, but like the percentage beats and whatnot to AMD. And the difference in CDW come from low points up big, AMD come from the high points low. This is a post-earnings play. I think you can play it in a variety of different ways. In fact, I wouldn't blame anybody for saying, you know what, I'm going to start by getting above the high and I'm going to build a position here in the reversal and I'm going to add up on top once it gets to 110. I like the 105 to 110 bull call spread. And, because the 110 level is honestly the ultimate reversal level is the 110 level. Anything we're doing underneath that is basically playing that up to 110. And then you get into that gap, and that gap goes up to 116. And so you're basically playing this up to the real reversal level, which is 110. And then you're basically saying, okay, if I can get something above 110, I can start adding on top of that as well. So there's a variety of different ways to play reversals in general. I like bull call spreads with a stock kicker, so you can build into a position trade if it starts to work out. That makes some sense to me as well. I like both of the picks. They're fundamentally different. One coming from a low point, two with momentum on the gap. I think they're both high quality picks. I will go with the gap to 32 personally, just given the fact that I am a really big sucker for a multiple time frame breakout. It's one of my favorite patterns in the market. And the only thing you can get better is a snapback flag to front run a multiple time frame breakout. Those kind of get me both. But I do like both of them. But if we have to declare a winner, I'm gonna give it to Frank this week. Frank, you get the winning crown.
I like it.
I
Feel
gotta
like I
get a
deserve it.
crown that we put on the winner's
Yeah,
head.
we'll just go to BK, get our own. Do they still give crowns
Yeah,
at BK?
yeah. I'm not talking
Sure
like a
they do.
fancy crown. I'm talking like
Yeah,
a Burger King crown. Yeah,
exactly.
made out of
Exactly.
paper
Listen,
mache. Yeah, of
I'm good with
course.
that. I'm good with that.
What's your favorite pick here? Audie likes KMB over GM. And I would say GM is my favorite of the bunch right now.
I would
So
say,
like
yeah.
if you like a low position reversal, KMB looks really good in my
Well, I
opinion.
think Bobby made a rookie mistake on KMB. He didn't bring these guys have a 5% dividend yield. Ex dividend date is on the 6th of March. So this
Mm,
probably being Kimberly-Clark probably is a month-long trade that you're holding if you're working into those levels,
capture
right?
that
An extra
dividend,
dollar
baby.
28 capturing that dividend. You might have been able to
Mm.
defeat me, Bobby, had you not made the rookie
That
mistake
that might have
there.
been the cherry on top because
That
I
might
was
have been.
really close. I was really close because I really like this Kimberly Clark one.
Yeah, yeah, I
Interesting
do
buy.
like them, but I do like it from that point of view. I
Well,
don't
and
think you play the
Kimberly
option
Clark
like the
does it
shares
like
route.
every other stock moves 48,000 points right now on the intraday. Kimberly Clark can move 5 points and make a good trade here. Like it's not one of those
Yeah.
big movers out
Dollar
there. So
28 dividend too for basically a month of holding. I mean, that did stand
it's
out to
really
me.
good. That dividend makes me even like that stock kicker even more and
Yep.
building into
I
that
still get to win
position to
because
get
I'm
above
the
that
reason if you do
110.
change that, I'm the reason that you did it. So you're welcome,
Yeah.
Bobby.
Mm. I'm going to modify Bobby's analysis slightly and do the stock kicker with capturing the dividend and building upon scaling in above 110. I'm going to give Bobby round two on that
There
one.
you go. There you go.
Yeah, I'm
Like
going to
it.
give Bobby round two on that one.
Yeah.
Guys,
There you go.
great trade masters. Thank you so much for coming on here and talking to the team and myself about some of those midweek picks. I'm going to tell you right now, one of the things I absolutely love about tackle trading and the community of tackle trading is I don't have to scan very much. We got amazing scanners coming out of Coach Frank, Coach Bobby, the Traders Report, the Scouting Report meeting, you name it. And so love the finds here, team, and looking forward to more next week as well. With that said, if you're looking for an amazing community to call home, hit that link in the description and become a trial member of Tackle Trading Pro membership. You can come hang out with us every single day in the Traders Lounge, get your educational content in the mastermind groups and the coaches show. Join me in Master Trader later on this month as well. Tackle Trading does it all. One-stop shop for you as a trader and investor to get all your goodies you need on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And you can sign up for a free trial account, get 15 days free on us, test it all out. If you don't want to stick, don't stick. We still love you. But with that said, Frank, let's go to final thoughts here. Frankie, you first.
Yeah, well, we're working our way through the heart of earnings season, so we'll start to slow down a little bit next week. Following week, kind of start getting there, and then it'll be, oh hey, there's earnings coming up for the gap. But working through there. Audie, to your question, double check, but it looks like the ex-dividend date is on the 6th of March, so it means we need to have it through that time period for the dividend capture, my friend. But still some really good setups out there, right? There's always some setups out there.
Getting more setups as we work later on
Well,
in
it's
earnings
and
too.
that's the natural thing, right? You
Yeah.
get through it and it's like, okay, like we looked at a couple, before we went live that they weren't quite there, but they're developing
Yeah.
nicely, right?
They
Post
might be there
earnings
on
pattern.
Friday during for
They
the
might,
scouting report meeting.
yes. So we're at that point in earnings where there's enough behind and far enough behind that secondary patterns are starting to develop. That wasn't true by and large last week at this time, right? But of course, check
Yeah.
your earnings calendars. You never want to get an earnings surprise. But more than anything, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you. Need anything from me, you can always hit me up over in Discord. And like Matty said, if you're not yet a member of Team Tackle, there's never a better day than today to take advantage of that free trial. You'll love it. It's the best community of traders out there, bar none. Thankful to be part of it every single day. We have a lot of fun. We work hard, but we also play hard. So we'll see you again for Trade Masters here, same time as channel next week.
Bobby, last thoughts.
Yeah, as Frank said, earnings is winding down here. You did get some volatility this week in the markets, looking over here. But there is good trades out there. There's still trades out there. There's still things that you can do. So, ABT, always be trading. And, if you missed last night's coaching show, I highly recommend, taking, a peek at it just because me and Frank, talked about, ABT and talked about a lot of different things that we wish we, would have learned earlier on in our trading careers.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
go over and check that out over on the, the coaches show on the website and, be ready for, what's comes next in the market.
Love it. Love it. Team, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And we'll see the pros in the Traders Lounge tomorrow morning.
Love it. Thanks, team.